Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors, find out what got them to where they are now, get insight into their daily habits, and take these insights to inspire your own growth? Each week, Jonathan Green shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a real estate investor, advisor, and coach, as well as the founder of Streamlined Properties and the team leader of Streamlined Properties on Market, brokered by eXp Realty. Whether you are looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, Jonathan seeks to provide a free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
This is episode 20 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. Today, my guest is Pete Reese of RealVest. It's RealVest Properties.
That's right. RealVest Properties.
Awesome. Pete has been an investor for more than 20 years, also a licensed broker in the state of California. And in the last 2 years has gotten into land flipping, which is something we're definitely going to talk about. Pete, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here.
I really appreciate the invite, and it's great to be here as well.
Great. Let's start with your origins on investing as a whole. When did you first get into real estate investing? And then we'll go through all the different avenues you've gone through in investing world until you got to what you're doing a lot now, which is land flipping.
Yeah, it's been a long road. It's been a fun road, though, I have to say. And our investing, when I say our, my wife and myself were a team, an entrepreneurial real estate team, I guess you could say. So we started our investment journey, like a lot of other people, buying our first home. And our first home in Southern California was $195,000, which these days you're not going to get too much for that price.
Yeah, everyone's crying about that.
Yeah, it was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, like 1,700 square feet in a nice neighborhood. So anyhow, we bought that home with an FHA loan, wrapped the seller closing costs into that, as well. So we were able to get into that property for very little out of pocket. And we stayed there for about a year. And then we had a baby and we decided to move in with my mother and father-in-law to save some money and rented that out. And then we decided we didn't like tenants. So we got, we ended up selling the house. That was at the time. So we ended up selling the house and made what we considered a quick $50,000. So we ended up with $50,000 after all was said and done. And we thought, and this is amazing. Where are we going to get this kind of money, like this chunk of change all at one time? So that kind of lit the fire. And we thought, hey, we can do this again. So bought another house, did well on that one. And then we got more into the buying homes just for investment and flipping purposes.
Yeah, it's interesting to note, though, that I think if you look at the investing world as a whole, everybody thinks their first house has to be like an attempted investment. But for most of us, me included, our first investments were just houses we were trying to live in and then realized when we sold it, that was nice.
We've got something here.
Yeah. So when you bought the second one, did you go to live in that? You moved back out of your parents?
Yes. Yeah. We moved into that place and it was a little better place. So we were able to step up the type of home we were in. So that was great. It was we had a little bit of confidence from the first one and it was a little bit of a fixer, but we figured we'd chip away at it. And then, either we'd hold it long term or kind of sell it after 2 years when we could get the proceeds tax free. But yeah, so that ended up working out well. And it just led us to home flipping as a business.
Yeah.
And that was interesting too, because the first home that we bought as a flip investment property, at the time, loans were super easy to get. I think this was 2006, maybe something like that, 2005, 2006, somewhere in that range. And we bought it for zero money out of pocket. It was one of those 80-20 loans.
Yeah.
And then we resold it to someone that approached us right after we bought it. We resold it and we didn't even have to make our first mortgage payment. So yeah, and I think we made $75,000 on that one. And then we were really hooked. I was like, this can't be that easy.
I think what you were identifying early is that you were good buyers. You were buying in areas and getting houses before someone else saw it, which was how I started. Was I just better at finding areas before someone else? Is that what you started to do? And then you realized, now if we put some work into the properties, we can earn what we did plus even more.
Exactly. Yeah. I always have been from the mindset that you make money when you buy, not when you sell.
I
so
agree.
if you're buying right, then you've got built-in equity. My history before real estate investing was I put myself through college working at a new car dealership, selling cars and everything like that. So I really understood sales, but I also understood the used car side of things where people would come with trade-ins, and I knew it was all about acquiring the vehicle for the right price. And when you acquired it for the right price, it was easy to sell it because you could price it right.
Yeah,
So,
I always like to say it's never about if I'm going to lose money. It's just about how much money I'm going to make. And what you're saying fits that perfectly. If you buy, you're either going to make whatever, $5,000. Maybe if you did a great job on buying, you're going to make 12. But if you buy right, you're not going to lose, barring miscalculated renovation costs, which of course is another issue.
yes.
But how did you guys know what you were doing when you started flipping? Was it just like you were going to learn as you go, or did you use resources? Did you know someone who had contracting background? Because I think that's where people get nervous about their first flips.
Our first home, I ended up doing a lot of the renovations. Looking back, they were very poor quality.
Yeah,
because I did it myself.
I grew up with my dad doing that, and they were poor quality for sure.
I would watch all these HD TV shows, and even at the time, 20 some years ago, there were a lot of those on, and they were really popular, and we would watch them all the time. And I would say, "Oh, I could do that. I could do crown molding. I could do all this stuff." And yes, I did it, but it probably wasn't the highest level of craftsmanship, as you would say.
Yeah.
So I got some confidence that, hey, I can do a lot of this stuff. I can put in a lot of the sweat equity myself. And I started doing that. Then I started hiring. I took on a couple people that I would have full time to work on our projects, and that really helped out a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you could learn more as you go. And then when you did that, did you start acquiring more? Were you acquiring properties at the time? Was it word of mouth, or did you start mailing back then? Were you buying on the MLS?
I wasn't doing anything fancy. I was just like looking on the MLS.
I still buy a lot of our properties on the MLS. I think people think that it's a misnomer, but the wholesalers where I am are so bad. MLS, I have more transparency on what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the reasons I got licensed, because I figured I'd have more control and I'd be able to go show properties to myself. Yeah. And I'd be able to put in offers that maybe agents were too embarrassed to put in for me, something like that. But I ended up with a lot of great deals that way. And it's just a matter of, you can sense the deals that are possible on the MLS and the ones that are probably a waste of time. But I think we have a lot of investor agents on our team. I think everyone really, if they're investing, should be licensed just for the access, because when you're a new investor, real estate agents don't want to take you around because they don't know if you can really going to get anything. So if you can go to vacant properties all the time, no one's going to complain about you looking at an REO for yourself. That's a fair showing. So I love the idea of getting licensed. Are you still licensed now, or have you just moved away from it? Yeah, still licensed. And I don't think I've worked with a client for maybe 5-7 years, somewhere in that range. But I keep it because we're always looking for investment deals around here. And I just figure it's great to have that MLS access, and I can go look at properties and do whatever I want. And I don't think anyone can properly do ARV without MLS access, because the data's only so good outside of the MLS. You can really see what's selling for what. So you went through, how long were you guys flipping, or do you still flip generally, or how long did that? We don't flip houses now, aside from if we buy a property that just incidentally has a house on it. It's more about the land. Yeah. But so we did that until the real estate market crashed in 2008, somewhere around there. I remember. Yeah. The whole world flipped on its end in that time period, especially if you're anything associated with real estate. So it was a tough time. We had a couple of properties that we got stuck with. We got out of them without being damaged too much. We lost some money. I know people that really got hit hard, and thankfully we weren't holding like a ton of properties at the time or anything. Yeah. So when after the downturn, 2008 going into 2009, how did you guys pivot your business? Thankfully, I had my real estate license, my real estate broker's license. So what we ended up doing, and this was Heather's idea, my wife's idea, she's like, hey, why don't you get into selling bank-owned homes? Because that's what's selling. I mean, bank-owned homes would sell, like you put them on the market, they get 10, 15 offers even at that time. Yeah. And so she got me down this whole rabbit hole of the bank-owned properties we were doing. We put in a whole system to do BPOs. That was paying the bills for us at the time. BPOs, we get $50 to $100 per inspection and little write-up report that we did. But then that would also put us in line to get the listing if the property became part of their portfolio. So
Right.
I just started exclusively doing REO listings, and that was a great match for the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're great. I've never really gotten into them because you have to really match with the asset manager to get those. But from an investor's point of view, we're always looking at REOs because pretty set out structure. It's the end of the line on the REO. So as an agent, it's a good listing, maybe for less, but you know what the bank's willing to do. The price is the price. They're barely going to go down maybe after 30 days, but they're usually priced well on the short sale, which are agent priced. And then you find out later it's not close to what the bank wants. How long did you do REOs for? And like how many would you hold listing wise at a time? Because that can get crazy.
Yeah, it gets a little crazy because you actually have to, with most of the companies, you have to put the utilities in your name and all this kind of stuff and be responsible. And it's not just that. It's like
daily
you get
checkups.
the bills, you got to pay them, you got to scan the stuff in, you got to give them verification that you paid it, and then make sure they get reimbursed, all this stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So I was probably only holding like 5 to 7 listings at a time. Wasn't a lot, but it actually paid the bills really well and kept us going at the time, which a lot of people were just struggling to get any sort of income at the time that were involved in real estate. So I was happy for it. And it was a great learning experience to see how things work from that side as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think understanding how it gets to the end of the line with REO is important as an investor. So you know what you're getting into if you're buying one or if you're buying courthouse steps. So transitioning out of that, before you got to land flipping, what other types of investments were you and Heather interested in? Because when we were on the pre-call, you told me there was a couple other ones that I thought were interesting too before we get to the land flipping.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things. After the REO listings, I wanted to scale up my business, but I was stuck because there was only so many REO listings out there. So I started really getting heavily into short sale listings. So I was doing as many of those as possible and creating more business by direct mail outreach to the homeowners themselves. That was an interesting niche. And to be honest, the real estate crash kind of scared us off from real estate investing in itself for many years. And I wish we would have gotten back into it sooner. I think, and before we got into kind of our current land flipping business, we had a whole kind of side tangent. For about 5 years, we were really heavily involved in, my wife started a blog and travel blog. And then we were traveling 150 days a year.
Wow.
With that, as a family of 5. So it was pretty crazy. It was great traveling all over the world and doing all these things, but it was a little much. But we had a whole other business associated with training people how to do that and to start those type of things themselves.
Cool. So when did the bug to buy come back? And then how did you get into just the land portion, which is what you're doing primarily now?
Yeah, it was coming back to me around probably 2018. I was like, we got to get back into real estate. Yeah. That's like what's in my blood. That's what I really feel. And that's what's always been interesting to me. So I was seeing a lot of people really taking advantage of the wave of the market that was happening. And I was like, we got to find a way to get back in it. So I was just looking for the best way to get into things. I was thinking, well, maybe we'll flip houses again, or maybe we'll do something else. And stumbled into the land investing thing, just doing some random research on the internet. And I was talking to Heather one day. I was like, there are all these people doing this land flipping thing, and it sounds really pretty good. They're talking about buying a property for $10,000 and then selling it for $30,000. I'm like, that would be great. You can't get financing for those type of things, but that's a great return on your money. And that's in a couple months' time. And she's like, well, yeah, if you could do those, we could do those all the time. So that was like my signal from her that I could start going into that
like
side of things.
Well, so how did you get started? What was your first land purchase and where did you find it? What did that deal look like? Because I think well, it's still an undertaking to go into something new.
I found a training program that was really pretty good. It got me going. It's called Land Academy. And they really helped me learn the basics of the business. There's a lot of different ways to do the business.
Yeah.
But they helped me really figure out how to evaluate properties and kind of the basics about how to get the deals coming in. Because without the deals coming in, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's
hard to drive for dollars for land because you're just, there's not a ton of it unless you're in a rural part of a state. Yeah. So how did you find the first land deal?
Yeah, all of our business is generated by direct mail, and we compile a list, we send out a letter, and it's a specific letter with an actual offer price and everything based off of the acreage and the area. And
that's
sale
actually
prices.
really interesting, because I think thinking of it now, like you can make direct offers on land. There's nothing there. You can, like you
Right.
said, calculate the acreage, understand what the surroundings are. Were these all kind of not connected to any municipal sewer or public water, so you didn't have to do that? Or do they come in both
For
sizes?
the most part, we buy stuff that is probably an hour or two outside of major metropolitan areas.
Yeah.
And right now, I'm pretty much the smallest lot I'll do is probably 10 acres, but I'd like to do 25 acres and above. Believe it or not, the smaller lots, say you get into the quarter acre, half acre lots that are in a city or town or municipality, those are the tougher ones.
They cost too much.
There's a lot that goes into it.
And those are obviously going to be developed, so you're going to need to run a lot more testing on those to make sure that they comport. I think we'll find out, but I think a lot of what you're doing is holding property until someone else wants to convert it to something else, but buying in the areas. Go ahead.
Yeah. There's different ways of doing it. My kind of model is that it's quick flip for most cases. We'll buy a property. We'll do some basic improvements to them sometimes. Things like getting a perk test done or getting some clearing done.
Can you just explain what a perk test is? Because this is so important. The best way to flip land is by just doing a little thing. And it's not what people are used to in terms of like, you do a lipstick flip or something. There's things that you do to make the land more accessible to somebody who wants to develop it. So explain the perk test and then maybe some of the other things you do, because I think that's really relevant to how to turn over a property quickly.
Yeah, definitely. Like a perk test is basically what you need if you are not going to be connected to the municipal sewer. And a lot of these larger properties are nowhere near a sewer line.
Right.
So you either get a porta potty set up or you get a perk test and get your septic system installed. It's basically your on-site sewage disposal system. I know it's gross and everything, but it is what it is out in these rural areas. So this perk test is essentially you get a soil scientist or someone from the municipality that comes out and digs some holes, and they determine if the soil is suitable for that. And once you have that test and you have that kind of laid out, then it instantly makes that property buildable.
That makes sense. You're saying that now they understand they can put, in this case, septic on there. The soil's okay. So it's much easier for somebody to come along and buy, whereas maybe that buyer saw the same piece of land but didn't know what to do with it. What other things are you doing to make it more marketable? Because you assume like people have seen the land. So when you turn it back out on the market, you have to turn it back out with something, but you're not building anything. So what else do you do to market the property?
Yeah. The other big thing that's a big help for a lot of our properties is that we'll do some clearing. And it's not like we're going to like go in and like clear cut the forest or anything like that.
Right.
We clear some paths and some access. And believe it or not, so many of these properties they're grown up woods, and they have like stuff that you can't even really walk through, like underbrush and everything. And just by clearing paths through a property so people can get out of their car, they can walk around the property, see what they've got and see what they're going to buy. It makes all the difference.
I think especially if there's views or access to any type of things on nature, you want them to be able. I agree. We get calls on land, and I've looked at land in the past. And you get there and you're like, I need to bring 5 sets of boots just to go through here. Exactly. You pull up and you're like, I don't know, is this it? It just looks like woods. Yeah. You don't realize what's buildable and not until you get there. Do you do any grading if it's not level, or just going to leave it the way it is?
We really haven't. We haven't really gotten into grading. I've done some like mulching stuff, and then they'll take a dozer and smooth out certain areas, but I wouldn't consider it really finished grading.
Yeah. And so when you got started, and then maybe even now till now, like who are you generally selling it to? Are you selling it to people who are wanting to build developments of homes, or is it farmland? Who's your ideal buyer for where you're buying?
It's a combination, really. I think a lot of them end up being someone that is looking for a little piece of the world that they can call their own. They can put a house on there. And a lot of times they end up being like a manufactured home. Yeah. It's something they can get on there quickly, get up and going, and get it done relatively inexpensively without a lot of permitting and planning and all that kind of stuff that's involved with some build projects. So those are a lot of the buyers. Some properties are just farmland where the use will primarily stay as a piece of farmland and it'll get leased out and just held as an investment. Some people buy properties like that as a timber investment.
Okay.
And so they'll just kind of accumulate different parcels and then they'll clear cut certain ones at certain times just for income purposes. People are buying them up now for solar farms. There's all kinds of things. And then when we get the properties that are outside of a little town or within a municipality or something like that, and there's demand there, then those become the potential subdivisions when there's access to public utilities, especially.
Right.
And there's demand for the properties, then those are some of the ones like that we could use for something like that.
What's your turnaround time usually from the time you buy it until you sell it off? What's ideal for you? What are you guys looking to accomplish?
This will probably shock you because this is completely different from what I had originally assumed the land business is all about. But our average hold time on our inventory is only 60 days.
Wow.
Yeah. So the whole key to it really is to buy the properties at the right price and then to be able to market them slightly under market value so we can attract a buyer pretty quickly.
Yeah. Are you putting those on the MLS or do you have enough of a scale? Yeah. Okay. So
we always list with broker partners that are experts in their area, have great buyer lists, and have a lot of credibility. And I much prefer to pay a good broker or agent that's going to get things sold and take a lot of that hassle off of and I'm a licensed broker myself. It's easy for me to do that side of things and negotiate with people and everything, but I'd much prefer to have a local partner that can help us out with that.
Couldn't agree more. I don't think that all investors value the agent enough. Obviously, I've been an investor for more than 30 years, but I have had an on-market team for a long time and been licensed for almost 10. Good agents are invaluable to good investors. That relationship between them is what will make everybody the most money. And it's always weird to me how someone will do a flip or acquire a great piece of land and then just put it up like for sale by owner. It's like, that's not going to help you. It makes it look like you are cheap. So I love what you said because even though you have a license, you're going to partner with someone local to make sure that they have the best access. And there are people who are better at selling land. That's not the same as a luxury real estate agent. You want to look and see who is selling land because they have all the clients who will buy all the land in the areas, right?
Yeah. And one of the things that's really important to us is because we're buying these properties all over the country. We don't really buy in California where I live. We're buying them in a lot of stuff on the East Coast. And it's very important for us to have a local broker that we trust and everything to give us their opinion on what the value is worth on a resale. So we leverage them on the buy side and then we give them the listing when we acquire the property.
Oh, okay. So when you're building your list, are you picking a set amount of states or are you doing it like nationally that meets like metrics that you're looking for?
We pretty much focus on certain states that we like. I'm always looking to expand this because there's a lot of different opportunities out there, but we focus on certain states and then certain counties within the states. We'll do a mailer. Our mailers are 25,000 letters per mailer, and we do a couple of those every month. So we send out a lot of mail.
What's the general content of the letter? Who's the target of your list? Are they absentee state owners who own land and they live out of state? Those are obviously ripe. What's the target of your list when you're building those?
Yeah, we look at certain acreage ranges. So we always do it within a certain acreage. And if they are properties, we exclude certain things. But for the most part, we're just sending out all the landowners in those areas. You know, if they have a super high assessed value or something weird, we'll filter some of those out because maybe there's something about the property we don't know. Maybe it's a solar farm or something weird about it. But generally, we're just more of a shotgun approach rather than a targeted approach. I know some investors, they're more of the targeted side of things. Like they try to build an ultra good list and then they get a much better response rate probably than I do.
That's more what I do. But I think what you're saying is, especially for land, you really want to cast a wider net. Because you're not turning it into a flipped home. You can do the little things to turn a small profit or a bigger profit. So the wide net definitely works. So it makes sense that you would mail to all of them over a certain acreage. Are all of those that go out, do they have offers on them?
Yes. Every single one of them is an offer with it. And it's a 2-page mailer and it's an intro letter on the first page. Second page is an actual purchase agreement that we send them, details about the property with the parcel number and the acreage and the price that we're actually offering and some basic terms on there. And Some people just sign it and send it,
That's
whether in the
awesome.
mail or by email. The problem is sometimes when that happens, a lot of times those properties may not be the best properties. They may be a property I don't want to buy anyhow because
Yeah.
it's a swamp, or
Right.
I was off on the value too much or something like that. But we do get some really good ones that way. People just sign it and send it back, and they just want to sell it.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think everybody has to know what your niche is and what that marketing looks like. So what you're doing is based on how you want to acquire it. There's always going to be some errors in there that you have to work your way out of, especially if you're bulk mailing. But the cool thing about this is you're buying in states where you don't live and you don't have to do any appointments. You can basically see the whole land on Google Maps, right? There's really not much.
Yeah, we use a couple of tools which are pretty valuable to us. One of them is called MapRight. It's an app that we pay for, but it's great for evaluating properties because we've got all kinds of different satellite maps and overlays. Like we can overlay wetlands, contours, all kinds of different stuff on there. So it's really pretty invaluable to us for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, hoping that you just don't end up or mail or acquire something that has a hidden issue that you didn't know about.
Yeah, as soon as we get a response, the first thing we'll do is we'll look up the property and say, is this a property that we would want to buy? Believe it or not, there's a lot of properties out there that just wouldn't make sense to buy. Either they're landlocked, they're 100% swamp, they're side of a mountain where you can't really do anything with it.
Yeah. Seems like a good town until you see where the cliff is.
Yeah, definitely. Until you look at that contour map and you see exactly what you're dealing with. So we use some tools like that really help us evaluate the properties. And then it's just a discussion with the seller, the property owner, and try to get as much information as we can. And after we have that discussion with the property owner, sometimes we were off on the price, sometimes they'll want a little more. Sometimes we were too high and we need to go back and say, hey, we didn't realize this or that, but we could do this. And either we come to a deal or we don't, or they come back and say, oh, you were too low. I need this to put a deal together. And we look at it, we might say, well, that makes sense. I could do that. But after that we always hire someone physically to go out to the site, photographer, drone photographer, and do a full inspection for us as well.
The system's really seamless, and I feel like you have very low risk because your buy-in price isn't that high. So if you do hit one and then you uncover like a wetlands by mistake, if you're doing enough deals, that one will just average itself out. How many deals a year are you guys doing in terms of land flips?
I'm hoping to get to, this is our second full year of doing everything. And I'm hoping to get, at the beginning of the year, I was thinking I could do 100, but it's probably going to be about 80 I'll end up with full flips.
Yeah, that's a lot though. So was that like 4 or 5 at a time, kind of going through that 60-day cycle?
It just depends. It just depends on, I guess right now I'm holding about close to 30 parcels. But some of them were created because I bought one as like a 75-acre parcel and I split it up into 5 lots. So I bought one, it turns into 5. So we've got situations like that. And there's a couple properties that I'm holding long-term. I'm working on development plans because it made sense to do so with those. Those are the ones that those will hopefully be the home runs. And then I've got a bunch of the singles and doubles, I guess.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's what I was going to ask. Are there properties that you come upon and you're like, wow, this one I didn't realize this lot was going to be this good. And those long term you can hang on to for a while and then figure out when the right time to develop is.
Yeah, definitely. Some of them, like this one deal I'm thinking of, we bought a package of 3 different lots in this general area. And I sold 2 of them and paid back, what we paid for all 3 of the properties. And then I'm left with the prime property, which is really development property. So now we're just holding that property and I've got no cost basis in it at all.
Yeah. Wow. I love it. Yeah. Do you feel like, are you enjoying the land flipping more than what you guys started with in terms of flipping houses? So much can go wrong. I feel like this is especially with the data and like the overlays that you use in the technology, there's very hard to make a giant error in this.
Yeah, I love it. It's fun for me because every day is a new opportunity and I love the buy side of things. So when I see leads coming in and interesting properties that we can buy, that kind of gets me excited. And I love selling them too. And I love getting the wired proceeds and everything, but that's fun part.
I think if land flipping, it's cool because you know that someone else is going to do something else. So it's like a win-win. Like I always feel if I wholetail a deal and I just lipstick flip it and fix it up a little, at least the next person's going to do the full flip and they're going to make money too. So like everybody benefits. That's what's nice. It's not like a flip and then the prices go down in the neighborhood. We did well and they do terrible. So yeah, it's really interesting. Awesome. Let's get to some of the questions here. I asked, who was your greatest influence? This is a great answer because you worked in tandem with your wife, Heather. Explain why she is the influence part that helps you do everything that you do. I love that you guys work together, and it's always good to have another ear to run everything by. And then you just feel as a family, you said you're a family of 5. You're doing this all together for the right reasons. How has that impacted the way you do your business?
Well, it's been an immeasurable impact, and who knows, I could be living in a ditch by myself right now without her. But no, she keeps me on track. She's a voice of reason. I'm like the one that's probably a little bit more aggressive. I'm always looking at the shiny objects and everything. So she keeps me more focused. And I've realized that limitation over time and where I've made mistakes in the past. So she's helped me stay grounded in that way. Every day we go for a walk. And that's one of our things that we do. We go for an hour walk, and that's our business meeting and going over different things. So it's been great to have her, and who knows where I'd be without her.
Yeah.
So.
I'm a huge advocate of aimless walks. I think it's like the best exercise and mind exercise for anyone. All of our best ideas always come on walks and your best conversations because there's nothing else happening. You're just seeing what's out there. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
How old are your kids? Are they going to be getting involved along the way in this?
Interesting you say that. Yes, I've got 3 kids. They're not all kids anymore, I guess.
Yeah.
I have 22, 20, and 12. And in fact, the oldest 2, my 20 and 22-year-old, they started their own corporation. And basically what we've done over the past year is that a couple of the smaller deals that were I didn't really want to mess with as much, I gave them the opportunity to buy them. Yeah. And then what ended up happening, I think they've done a total of 4 deals so far in over a year.
Awesome.
And they've taken an initial $8,000, which they had saved up and invested, and they've parlayed that into $65,000. So
that's really good.
Yeah. I mean, for being 20 and 22 years old, and I didn't have that kind of money then.
I'm trying to get my kids are 21 and 19, and I'm like, come on, get your license. And also let's do some off-market stuff. They're close. I think they're getting more interested as they get older. That's how I learned. My dad was an investor, and I was just always with him in the car growing up. And then I realized, wait, I know a lot. So I think that's really cool. And it's cool that you can involve the whole family in something that you're passionate about as well. We've got, what is the most important trait for a real estate investor to have? You said confidence in the ability to clearly focus on your business model. And then you said one thing that was a problem for you. You said not getting distracted by the shiny objects. How did you get to the point where you had the confidence to know, okay, I'm good. Like I've got this covered?
Mm-hmm. I've always had confidence. And I think maybe the problem stemmed from the fact that I had too much confidence that I could make multiple businesses and things going at one time work. And then what happens is you just lose your focus and you're spread too thin, and there's only so much you can do with your time in the day. I've just realized that I got to just stay focused on what I'm good at and really just take whatever business model I'm working on and just go all in on it.
Yeah, it's great advice. I like the idea of an overall diversified portfolio as an investor. But in terms of if you're good at something, like just keep putting the circle piece in the circle hole. It just works. Yep. Like you just have to be consistent. People especially with land flipping, I could see people like wanting to hit more money each time, but it's not, it's more volume, and better systems just create that complete flow, which is, I'm sure, what you've gotten to at this point. That is good stuff. What's wrong with the real estate investing world right now? This is one that most people answer the same. You said generally related to the scammers out there. Do you mean like people in the business or classes that people are offering, mentorships? That's where I find a lot of the scam. I think there's lots of great programs like the one you took sound like it really got you going on that. But yeah, it's a murky world out there in the investing world.
Yeah. And you know what? There's a lot of interest in real estate investing. So I think that brings out some of the undesirable characters that are going to try to take advantage of the new people that don't really know what they don't know yet. So it is unfortunate that they're out there. And I guess that's any industry, but it seems pretty prevalent with the real estate investing world. It's just kind of, you got to be aware and you got to really dive in and make sure that the advice that you're getting is actually good advice.
Yeah, I feel like some people who have money and want to invest make themselves a mark by going into forums and saying, hey, I have $500K to invest. Who wants to help me? Yes. They're all coming for you now and they all have a program. Yeah, I get it. I think the more you build relationships and you get vetted stuff from other people, you're better at evaluating like what the potential is. And then of course you can take a class that costs money, and if you put the work in, you can still become an expert, but there are definitely ways to go wrong.
Yeah, I guess the main advice would be just like, if you're going to choose someone as a mentor or a program to follow, just vet them as much as you can and see if there's other successful people that have come out of that.
Yeah, I agree. One way we could all collectively make the real estate investing world better. This is great. We've talked about it a little. You said niche education or niche education, becoming an expert in one particular business model and then duplicating it. I love this because I think people try to get into you can't be good at mobile home parks, self-storage, flipping all at the same time. Like you said, you can't do it all. Did you learn that when you got to land flipping, or was it something you had worked on before when you were focused on other areas of investing?
Yeah, I think I've always been niche focused, and just realized my greatest successes have come from that when I'm not trying to do too many different things. So the land thing was something that really resonated with me, and I knew that I could take this. The business model is really the model itself is pretty simple. There's a lot of nuance to it, but I knew that if I just focused in on that and just focused on my numbers, focused on scaling up as much as I can, I knew I could make something pretty good of it.
Yeah.
So
I really like it. There's so many different areas that people can get into and go down the rabbit hole in real estate. I just think that they're looking for the profit first instead of, this may take a little while. You can't turn it around quickly. It's like wholesaling. If you're flipping land, you know what the spread's generally going to be or what you're looking for. Wholesalers, if they were smarter, would just be trying to make that little bit on each deal and do volume. But instead we have people trying to go from wholesaling into like full-time real estate investors. They're trying to make everything a home run. And like you said before, sometimes you got to take those singles and doubles to make sure that you're just filling it up that way. Best book on real estate. This is almost everyone's. It's one of my all-time favorites, but I love to talk about how it impacted you. How did Rich Dad, Poor Dad, when did you read it, and have you read it multiple times, and how did it help you get into that mindset? Because this podcast is about the mindful approach to real estate. And I just love what Rich Dad and Poor Dad has done differently for all of us who've read it. I like to read it every couple of years because it just reinvigorates me into like how you can go from this bottom process and just figure out the right way to do it.
I think it just gave me top level perspective on how the world of investing and real estate and everything all works, like the top level view and where I wanted to go rather than where I was at the time. I think I've read it probably for the first time, maybe 10, 12 years ago, maybe something like that. I know it's been out for a long time, and I'm like you, I've got it on most of my books I listen to on audiobooks on Audible. So it's in there. It's in my library, and every year or so I do a little refresher on it, and I pick up new stuff all the time for sure.
Yeah.
So it's great stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. If there was one piece of advice you could give to new real estate investors in today's market, what would it be to help them be like more mindful in the approach? Because you've gone through different investing portals over the last 20 years. How could you help someone now figure out what's going to work for them?
I would just simply try to find a model that aligns with who you are and what your strengths are. And there, like you're saying, there's a million different areas within real estate that you can choose to focus on.
Yeah.
And you might decide, hey, I want to be a mobile home park owner, and I've got some resources and I can pull off the financing and I can do all this stuff, and I just want to get the income from that. Or you might be the type that's, hey, I need more of a cash type business, which is going to be my kind of salary, like my income. Then you might want to think of like home flipping or land flipping or wholesaling or something like that to get the short-term cash flow going. So it's like trying to marry your best skills and what kind of end result you're going to need. And then just picking a model and try to learn everything you can about, try to become, it's going to take you a while to be the world's top expert in whatever you choose. That's your aspiration. You want to get as knowledgeable as possible because knowledge is power, and knowledge will lead to a lot of good things.
Yeah, I think the personality aspect, like you said, matching your personality to what that funnel is really important, because someone who's not good with data isn't going to be good at land flipping because you don't have to go see it. You have to be able to crunch the numbers, and the margins are smaller than normal. And someone who wants to be hands-on, maybe it's not enough for them. They can't touch the stuff as it is. So I think it's important to know Yeah, like what skills do you bring to the table before real estate investing that can help you as an investor? It's a great point. Personality plays a big role. This has been awesome. If people want to get in touch with you, where's the best place to get in touch with you?
Best place to go would be at turningprofit.com. And on there, we share a monthly income report about our land investing business. It's a breakdown of how things have went for that particular month, and just going to keep it going forward and adding insights about each deal we do, what we learned, what went well, what didn't go well, and just give as much insight as possible. If you're interested, yeah.
If people wanted to send you an email, do you want to give out an email on that?
Sure. Reese at turningprofit.com is the best way to get a hold of me.
All right.
And that's on the site as well. So you can just, if you forget that, you can just go to turningprofit.com and find all the stuff there.
Yeah. So, do you also have a podcast or working on a podcast?
Yeah, it's going to be launched. We're in the preparatory stages, Heather and myself. And we're going to be diving into the podcast world and hoping to make a lot of great connections that way. So I'm envious of people that have their own podcast, because it seems like they get to talk to really interesting people all the time and learn stuff at the same time they're doing it. Yeah. So it's really kind of cool.
I feel like podcasts are such a good information portal, just because you can listen to them when you're driving, when you're exercising. Yep. There's so many options for consumption that there aren't for like when we just used to read books. I still like to read books, but like you said, I have a lot on Audible also, because I can do that while I'm doing something else, but still pay attention. And It's free. Where else can you get all of this information for free? Like you can pop in, know nothing about land flipping, come listen to you on this podcast, and now feel like maybe that is something I could do. I really think it shines a light, because these niche products of investing that people think maybe are outside of their reach, these type of things and your information can help them understand, like, that sounds like something I can do, and I can do it from home. I just have to figure out the right workflow to make it work.
Yeah, listening to one of these podcasts have sent me down numerous rabbit holes over the years. Right now, I'm interested in solar farms, so I listened to something about that, and now I'm trying to learn everything I can about that. So
yeah, It's always good. Exactly. You just get one piece of information and then take it from there and see what it's about. Fantastic. Yeah. Pete, it was great talking to you. I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. We'll link to all of those things that you talked about in the show notes. And it was an absolute pleasure. I'm glad you could get this info about land flipping out. I'm sure you'll be receiving some contacts, because it really seems like an interesting way of doing business in the investing world. Yeah, thanks so much, Jonathan. I really appreciate you having me on here. And it was a blast. So. All right. That was Pete Reese. I'm Jonathan Green. This was episode 20 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. We'll see you next week. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with me, Jonathan Green. And I just want to remind you, and this is always an uncomfortable part, I don't want you to think that I'm begging for you to like, subscribe, follow, do whatever you have to do for the podcast, leave a 5-star review. But if you like the podcast and you think it adds value in the real estate investing sphere, then just do me a personal favor. Like the podcast, follow it, share it when you can with your friends, and be so kind as to write a 5-star review if you believe it deserves a 5-star review up against what else is out there. I would really appreciate it, and I hope you keep listening.